Welcome, everyone, to the After the Gate podcast, your number one source for authentic stories, interviews, and educational content surrounding the justice system, incarceration, and more. Come along with us now as we give you a glimpse before and after the gate.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to the After the Gate podcast. I'm your host, Alexander the Great, and today we have a very special guest with us, Marsha. So we're going to jump right into it. Amazing story, amazing author. She has a success story that she's pushing and helping people grow through. So let's jump into it. Marsha, can we get your name and location?
I am Marsha Mixon. I'm in South Carolina, a little town called Moats Corner outside of Charleston. Most people know where Charleston is. Everybody loves Charleston. I'm 50 years old. Yes. And I just want to help other people be able to kind of have a little bit better life than what they've come from.
Absolutely. Both of us are ex-cons, so coming from that experience, that lifestyle, I feel like we both have a lot to offer, especially in our stories. Not currently incarcerated, but let's hear about the very first time you went to prison. You've only been incarcerated once, right, Marsha?
I did go to jail once. Charges were dropped, okay. But I was only incarcerated in prison that one time.
That one period. Okay.
That was enough.
So yeah, thank goodness.
Yeah.
I always say one and done.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. Okay, so let's hear circumstances surrounding the crime that sent you to prison. What led up to the court, the proceedings, and then going to prison?
So I was basically raised in a great home, like 2-parent home, went to church growing up, ended up being church choir leader, and then got mad at God. And so then started with a little drinking and then trickled in a little bit of drugs. And then before you know it, 10 years later, full blown, all into everything, addicted to meth and booze. Really kind of doing my own thing. I had 4 kids. 3 of them were actually home. One of them was my 17-year-old son at the time where he was turning 17. And I was never one to have parties. And he's like, well, I'll have a little party. I'm like, great. Keep it simple. Keep it like 4 or 5 people that you know, that's it. And so he had a party and a lot more people than that showed up. And of course, I was doing my thing. I wasn't necessarily so concerned in being in the parental space. And one thing led to another. I had a counter full of liquor. They ended up completely wasted. And unfortunately, 2 of the teen kids left in an ambulance. I was arrested that night and charged with contributing. And over the course of the next year, like having that court call every single month, and then finally going to that court day. And on the day, everyone else was kind of expecting me to go home with like a little slap on the wrist, probation, like all of that, time served, whatever. And that did not happen.
They arrested you that night. Did you get bailed out? Did they release you? How did it go down from there? Did you have to stay in jail?
I was only there like, I think a night or so. And then of course my long-term memory is a little foggy on some things sometimes. Yep. But I wasn't in there very long. Just in the holding tank, and I think I was in general pop like a day, so it wasn't extended. And yep. I got out on a PR bond. So most people think, you get out on PR bond, it's not too bad. I'd never been in trouble before with the law. Like I've had like one arrest for an open container. It was one open container. I blew. I wasn't drunk. It was just, I was a DJ and I decided I was going to do a nice deed and take someone else home. Although I was a drinker and there was many things I could have gotten arrested for along the way, I didn't have a record of a history of getting into a lot of trouble and things like that.
Absolutely. So going to this court date, this was the first felony that you were facing, right?
I actually was, funny enough, we didn't even discuss this. It's actually not a felony. It was a misdemeanor. Yes, right? The look on your face says it all. Like, yeah.
Okay. So, but they still sent you to prison, right?
Yes, I still lost my right to vote. I still lost the ability to carry
bear arms.
Everything.
Oh my. So, okay, so South Carolina law must be
Yeah.
totally different.
Yeah.
So can you ever have those reinstated?
I did get my voter registration and have voted back in place. So that was really
Very nice.
exciting for me. Like I was like,
Yeah.
"Oh, I'm back. I'm back."
Yes.
So that was pretty simple. It was just going online and just registering like a voter again. Like that was not complicated.
Back to it. Nice.
I could go to the lengths to get things expunged, I think, and possibly pursue that. But the rule is if you've been to prison, regardless of how long or what it was for, whether it's a felony or a misdemeanor, you lose your right to own a gun. And I think if it's expunged, then that kind of gets taken away, like it never happened. However, at this point in my life, I really don't want to get the expungement because I want people to know like this is the real story. I want people to know like this is who I was. You can look me up, you can go see. It's all right there. It's unreal, like crazy.
Pretty much like, yeah, you've made this much success through with that felony.
Yeah.
Why am I gonna or with the misdemeanor, why with the record? Why am I gonna take it away? Okay, so now you went to court thinking slap on the wrist. What happened that day? Was it sentencing? Did they take you to prison or that day? Did you go back into lockup? Explain how that day went down.
That day I was out free because I had that year. I had to go to court every month, but then that day I went to court. Everyone else actually thought it was going to be probation, but I kind of felt like I was going to get some time. Like I didn't really know how much.
How come you felt like that?
It was just a gut feeling. I didn't have a lawyer that I felt like was kind of on there. The especially when court went down. So like the kids' parents had written letters and there was really a lot. Yes, I was guilty. Absolutely was not. But some of the stuff in there was not true. You know, that like they added and made it sound, the judge said, this is the most egregious I've ever heard. And I was like, none of that, like that didn't happen. Like that did not happen. And so they kind of built that up. And then of course the kids were messaging and all of that. I didn't really have any control over that, but those were brought up. And because my son, 17, you know, he felt responsible and he's panicking. You know, 17-year-old boy wants to defend his mom, first of all. So he's like, y'all are ridiculous, you know. And one of the girls actually was in some trouble before that, and kind of I think since both of them have kind of been not in good spaces, and hopefully my story can affect even them. They're in my community. So
absolutely.
So I went to court, and in court, my family was there, my friends were there. Once they heard the case, they immediately sentenced. I was immediately handcuffed and turned over as a ward. I was property now of SCDC, taken into a holding cell. That was the last time I saw my family. Until my sentence was up 192 days later. I was sentenced to 3 years, suspended to 1, and ended up out of that after the fact. You don't know when you go in, like when you're going to get out, but it ended up on the 192nd day, I did get released. And you don't know you're going to get released like till right then. And then
until the day that you get released in there?
Or the day before, maybe, like at max. Like you're not given.
So you said 3 years suspended 1. So could you have done that full 3 if you would have went in and created trouble or something?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely. So if you get into any kind of trouble in there, they can add time. So for instance, I had a situation when I was in there that I had, and I am really sensitive about it. You know, you do dope, you're going to have a tooth, you know, something.
Oh,
so
I have.
Right. It's like, that's one of the things I'm going to fix. So you always have that thing, right?
Yep.
So they pulled that when I was in, and I had ibuprofen. And so you have these lockers that are in the room. So we had 3 people to a room. We had this locker, and you know, you have oftentimes your roommates change, especially being a short timer. It's kind of like a revolving door. I had several roommates in that time span, but one of them was a pill popper. And so I really like didn't I didn't give her anything, but she went in my cabinet and got it. So whenever they come around and they check your room and you know, they go through everything, they literally count your pills and if any are missing. I didn't wait. I thinking, you know, I'm thinking, well, you know, I counted them. I know they're short. I go and I say, hey, these are missing. I want to, you know, be forthcoming and let, you know, I'm bringing this to you. And so when I did that, then I actually got charged in there for traffic and trading, drugs. Yeah, dude. I was like, she never got like that was on me. I had to go like inside the
front
prison
of a
court. Yeah.
yeah.
So like they had their own little decision making that they were making. And then my sentence, punishment, whatever was the rest of my time had to literally be in my room. Like that was it. Like a tiny little cell with 3 beds in it. And I mean, like it was like crazy. So
I'm blown away at the extent to what they've put you through. Seriously, Marsha, like it's sad because I think of this too. When I was in prison, there were circumstances where like you get in trouble and you're pleading like, please look, I'm trying to tell you I'm not wrong in this instance. Just
right.
listen. And there's no help, no avail. Will anybody listen to you? You're immediately discredited, and that's what I feel like happened to you. That's not fair. You were sent, like you were pretty much in the hole in your cell, sitting. Yeah. Did they let you out for like an hour or a day or something, or go to recreation at all, or?
You got to go to the shower. I also lost canteen privileges, so you know what prison food's like. Look at
you couldn't even order. Like, oh my goodness.
So at that point, I really am participating at traffic and trading. The girl that I still keep contact with, she was a long timer. She had, I think, like 20 years. And so 20 or 30, it was a long time. Like she had 10 years left. And so I was like, hey, I need this. You need clothes. So in canteen, we could buy like even if you're locked down from canteen and you can't get any of the food stuff, you know, to make the prison food that really you think is pretty good when you're in there and oh my God.
It's bad.
Oh, it's nasty. Like
it's nasty.
It's really nasty. I was like, you think it's okay because it's better than, you know, going to the hall, you know, that's even crazier. So with all of that going on, I was like, I'll buy you shirts and shoes and whatever, because I had money coming in, so that wasn't a big deal. And so I would buy her that stuff, and then she would trade food stuff with me. So that's considered traffic and trading, which I could also have gotten in trouble with. And I'm confined to my room, so she had to kind of work through my roommates to kind of get this stuff in and me to get stuff out. And it was really it kind of just makes you be in a position of what are you gonna do for survival? Like,
so so Jay Burton, me and you have spoken a little bit about him, that's incarcerated. I previously did an interview with him. He tells me all the time, I've done horrible things inside prison because I had to survive. Like, I'm here like, if you don't believe me, then take my spot and see how it is. Like 100% I've had to do horrible things, and people from the outside will never understand like a small thing such as trade and trafficking, or like any little thing that they think is you're a horrible criminal that continues to make mistakes. It's like people can't see that until they understand prison settings. I swear it's uncomfortable, and you feel helpless trying to plead with somebody who doesn't take your case at all,
because you got no friends in there. Like
no friends. That's
not a thing. Like there's nobody that's got your back for real. I mean, like, especially when you're a short timer like I was, like you don't have someone to back you and that you've built anything with, and even so with that's still a lot of like not there. But that charge for the pill charge was on my record, so my family's looking at my information, and they're seeing like, you know, I have a history of drugs, so they're seeing like, oh, she got a drug charge while she's in there, so like that looks bad on me. And then there was another instance where there was a lifer who really didn't want me to go home. So she kind of had it out for me. So she's like, yeah, let's make her do a little bit more time. Because, when you go to court in there, like they make the decision. They're the judge, the jury, like they decide, because I could do up to the 3 years. And so they can, and even if you like, if I stab someone in there, like I still, like, laws are different, and there's like a jail, and I guess in what you were referring to as the hole, like ours was like another pod, but it was super cold, and it was like not the same circumstance. Everyone that come out of there was like super skinny. They don't get canteen, nothing like that. Like yeah, it's really wild.
South Carolina has it rough, just from the way you're explaining the experience you had. Like,
and that's the women's.
Yeah, please, don't go through there, commit a crime or get caught, or man. Okay, so when you went to prison, what was your feeling? Were you like, were 100% uncomfortable feeling, or were you like, I'm ready for this, I can handle this, or like, what was? Let's hear unfiltered feelings.
Sunday before I went in, that was my son's birthday. That was the day that I got right with God. And I was like, all right, that was the day that like my addiction was removed from me of alcohol and meth. And like, it just was non-existent. Like it never happened. It was crazy. Went home, poured out like a half gallon of the cinnamon liquor. I don't know, any liquor I would drink, but it was the whatever that
Fireball.
There you go. That was it.
Yeah.
And then poured that out, and I was just done. And so the Monday I went to court, and as soon as I got sentenced and put in that holding cell, I was like, so we really doing this, huh, God? And he's like, we sure are. And I was like, okie dokie.
Sit down.
I said that I would accept whatever it was that you put in front of me, but that was a hard thing to accept, like for real, when you're sitting like on a bare floor in a cell holding. And then then they put me back over to the jail. And the next morning we get on a bus. So the seats are, like this thick, and you have on this side, there's like 3 or 4 of us women here. We're shackled, we're handcuffed, we're all connected together. And then there is a wall with a over the top, like almost like a looks like the fencing over the top. And then on the other side of that wall, there's the guys. Now we had about a 4.5 hour drive, which was really, really like strange, because the guys were just very they were just, like the things you see in prison, like when people come in like that like, all that harassment type, that's the way they were kind of talking over there. And I was like, oh man, probably people who'd been in before or whatever, like trying to create that atmosphere for someone who had not been in that. And so that was a long ride. I am not a little girl, so it was super uncomfortable just to be in that space, in that, and then you're anticipating everything. So that was like the last vehicle ride that I had. And you don't see anything, like there's no windows behind me. You might could see a little bit out of the front where they were driving, but there's also, that divider between you and the drivers. So it was really unnerving. Then you walk in and you immediately, like, you are no longer a name. I was 37, 36, 99. That was me, period.
That's how they referred to you, huh?
Like, Costa was that was my name there. It's my maiden name. I mean, my married name. Yep. And so, but that you had to say that number, like, when they do roll call several times a day. So it was probably 4 times a day. If you didn't stand up for roll call, you got put in, they called it jail, which is the whole whatever. And it's just, you don't know what to expect. You're shoved into here, you're stripped down, you're put in the shower. They examine your whole body for tattoos, because, you can't, if you get any more, you get in trouble again for that. They're really not telling you the rules. They're just kind of pushing you through. They're getting your uniforms. You throw your shoes and your clothes away. Like you no longer own anything. You no longer have.
There's so yeah, when I went to prison, I can remember they had a log, and I logged everything. I had like seven envelopes, 4 photos. What happened? So do you come there with a bag, if anything?
No, no. I had the clothes on my back, and that was it. That was it. And then you don't get those same clothes when you go to leave. So then they have this like this closet of clothes. None of them fit. You don't have any clue what size you wear, because when you're in prison, you either lose or gain or whatever. I was the gainer because I was stuck to my room. Like it was you don't get to go anywhere, like controlled movement, that type situation. And so you also were not allowed to work out in your room. Yeah. And
oh my gosh.
And so it was really just
what was the rules behind? What was it? Just we don't want you slipping and falling and someone not seeing you or something, or
they don't want you to have any betterment, really, like that you're going to. I think they just like to keep you at that.
They're trying to discipline you. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can understand it.
They want you to be, they want you to have that experience that you don't ever want to come back there. Cause it was level 3. It's not, this wasn't like, you know, whatever they call it, the
day camp or whatever.
Yeah. It wasn't anything like that. We did occasionally have the walk around thing, but we were locked down a lot. But before I got confined to my room off of that charge, you know, we could walk around this one loop a little bit, but that was about it. I couldn't be in any programs because I was a short timer. So pretty much stuck on the pod. My job was cleaning over there. It was really unbelievable. Like
what was okay, so can you tell us some experiences about inside prison? What was the most memorable experience? What was, say, like maybe the worst thing that you saw? I mean, I know, I'm sure men's prisons are a little bit different compared with women's, but I've only heard stories. What would you say is like the hype inside the women's prison, and what you experienced inside there, from whether it was violence or wholesome acts, or, you know, tell us that.
I was really surprised the access, like that they had to make basically alcohol. I forget what they called it there.
Pruno, yeah, or hooch, or
yeah. And so there was a few different names or whatever. And so my roommate was one that was like pocketing the cranberries for that, or one of my roommates. But probably the thing that it made me cringe, completely just cringe. There was a little girl, and she was a little girl. I mean, probably 4'9", like a little girl, petite. And she was a lifer, and she was fairly newly sentenced, and she had just moved into our pod. And it was actually the same roommate of mine that, you know, I don't know, like she had something to prove or something, and she liked being this persona or whatever. And I don't know, the girl said something to make her mad. Next thing you know, like she is profusely in the bathroom, like, because when you're in the bathrooms, the guards can't see you. COs are on the other end. And she just beat this poor little girl, like where the hand of one is the hand of all. So this little girl was actually tied up with this guy that committed a murder. So she got life. And just to see that and know that young girl's life, like she fought, like she held her ground, and she wasn't backing down, because she knows that like she can't back down from that. Like that's she's gonna survive in there no matter what size she is. She's gotta fight back. Period. Like if you don't fight back, you're not gonna survive. Like you have to stand up for yourself.
It'll be every day.
Every day. And so she stood up for herself. I will give her that. But I would remember us sitting around before, earlier, when I had the freedom to go inside the pod, and we would sit at the tables and go over magazines. And so we would cut things out of magazines that we wanted to do or get or whatever, or clothes we want to have, or places we wanted to go, and kind of make like a scrapbook from them. You know, we'd collect these pictures.
That's cool.
And so kind of just getting your mind out of being in there. And like, that wasn't an option for her. Like, she's not going nowhere. She's just not going anywhere. And the people that, you know, I used to think it was really hard to go end up in prison. You know, like I was the person that said, oh, I never do anything to go to prison. I discovered people that were in there that I just like, one lady was in there. She was driving the car. Her brother died. She got charged. She's doing time. There was another girl. She was driving her son, and I don't know how much she'd had to drink. The story was she had a couple, um,
Hmm.
and got in an accident. She was in there for 15 years. Another young girl. Another girl was in there. Her brother-in-law came over to return the gun that they had. It was a rifle. It was in her name. It fell over, killed her husband because the gun was in her name. She had to do 15 years. Just these stories, you
Oh
know.
yeah, you hear a lot inside prison.
That-
You hear circumstances.
yeah.
It's sad. It's sad because there's so many different people that you want to be, you know, sympathetic towards them, or even some of the heinous crimes inside prison that you hear, and you're like, man, I don't know what that person did. I don't ever want to be in that circumstance. You know, it's, what would you say that prison did to you, mentally, physically, spiritually? Did if you could say that prison added or took away from you in that capacity, what would you say?
My body was already not in great shape because I had really beat it up doing the drugs and the alcohol especially. And I had gotten really to a space that was not healthy. So being in prison and being confined and being in that space, this is where I was at when I came out. Like, that is, I was really, really out of shape. Um, but I was stronger spiritually. Like, there's nothing to do in there. Um, so I read my Bible. My son actually sent me money to get a radio at Christmas time. So I was so thankful for that, because you have to have the radio to watch TV. Otherwise, there's no sound. So you
Yep.
have to have the headset. I still have that radio. So I have that. I had that. So I would listen to Charles Stanley, and I would listen to Stephen Furtick, like Chuck Swindoll. Those are the people I would kind of look, if I could get the station in just right. It's like
Yep.
really old school radio, not no fancy uptown. So I really got stronger spiritually. My physical stance was weaker, but I will say, when you go into a situation like that, because I was kind of hot-headed, and going into that, you must learn to control your emotions and to control your responses, and really mindfully think of what's your next step going to be, and then thinking, what's the next step of this person, and really being watchful and mindful and paying attention to what's going on, because if you don't, you're going to end up in a situation that you don't want to be in.
Yeah.
And
If you're not observant, you won't last in prison. You have to keep your eyes open. Everything.
Because nobody's your friend.
Nobody's your friend. You ain't lying.
Nobody's your friend. So yeah.
Marsha, if you could say that prison taught you anything, real world concepts, spiritual concepts, anything, what would you say that prison taught you the most, and you take to this day with you everywhere?
You're one decision away from being there. I don't care who you are. You are one decision away. Knowing that every decision you have in your life is a ripple effect, not just in your life, but everybody around you. And so when I was in there, I needed to decide, like, when you go into prison, who are you going to be in there? Who are you going to be? Because it's not always your authentic self, but what I decided I was going to be was exactly who I was. And at that point, as I grew in my spirituality, then other inmates would come and ask me questions when they were seeking that, when they were looking for that answer. And so everything you ever want to know is from Genesis to Revelation. It's right there. Like, it's leadership books have been written based on it. Like, it is full of everything that you need, no matter where you're at in your journey, no matter what you're experiencing in your life. You can literally open that up, and it gives you somewhere to go. It gives you hope. And so the biggest thing is, it doesn't matter what you read. You don't need a regimen or a structure. At the end of the day, no matter where you're at, who you are, or what you're doing, if you're struggling with anything, go open the Bible. I try to leave mine open, like on a table, or because then, you know,
Cool.
something's going to catch your eye. But if it's closed,
Yeah. You walk by and you get a little word that's stuck out.
yes, like, wait a minute,
Keeps you around.
Yeah. And
I
so
like it.
no matter what, there's scripture now that's stuck. There's things that are always with me. And so Matthew 6:33, like that was my anchor. And it's seek him first, period. And everything else is taken care of. And if I'm doing that, that's the one decision that's going to keep me in a different direction. But I saw so many people, it was one decision. It was my one decision, you know, yeah, have a party. No, don't. Like, do not give minors access to your stuff ever.
Yeah.
Ever. And so in looking back, there were so many lessons, but at the end of it, the beginning of my sentence, the end of my sentence, throughout my sentence, after my sentence, the one thing that was the constant that is what got me through that, and everything else after that, and everything today is my relationship with God and staying in that word. The second you start to leave that and leave that habit and leave that foundation, and you decide you're going to do some things on your own, you don't really need God anymore, that's when you're in trouble.
Yeah.
That can
I
fall.
love how you said staying authentic when you went into prison, because it made me think about my personal experience. And when I went in the first 2 years, I was wearing a mask completely. Nobody knew who I was, what I was about, the real stuff. And it took probably like 3 or 4 years into my sentence for me to actually open up and be like, wow, this is who I am, or this is openly say it without having to worry or be scared of what's going to happen when you express who you really are.
Yeah.
I love your story, Marsha. I know people are really going to enjoy it. And all the success that you can motivate and inspire others through. Just personally, being across your social media platforms inspires me to continue to do everything that I'm doing. For everybody that's watching, please tap into the links below in the description. Marsha's social media links, everything that you can find her on is below. Marsha, do you have any last words for us?
Stop thinking about what you could do and who you could be, and just start pursuing it. Like, there are things that you can achieve in your life with that one decision. Like, think about the day you went and made your first TikTok. Like,
just hit record.
Right?
They say it, just go hit record, go. Yeah.
You
just go do it.
If you sit and you think about it and you dream about it, like, make the action. Like, it's great to have dreams, but if you never put the action behind it, it's never going to go anywhere. So I don't care what kind of action it is, find something you can put into place, because everything good that happens in your life is because of the action you take. And that's so awesome. Don't just sit and think about it, dream about it, do something about it. So it's all in the do that things start to happen and unfold. Nobody's going to do it for you. So do it yourself.
I love it. I look forward to everything that you're going to be doing, Marsha. And thank you so much for speaking with me today across the podcast. Everybody, please hit those descriptions below. Tap in with her, show her some love. And I can't wait to speak to you in the near future.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
Awesome.
I appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you for your time, Marsha. We'll stay connected for sure. So
awesome. Love it. Love it. Love
okay.
it.
You have a wonderful day.
Bye.
I'll talk to you soon.
You too.